You all knew this was coming. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spin It Reviews, and today I'm going to be talking about the new album from Nickelback called No Fixed Address. Nickelback, Canadian hard rock, arena rock, radio rock band, who's basically become the butt of the joke for many a music fan over basically all the time they've had mainstream success, and honestly that's not for bad reason. That being said, I'm going to confess a little something right off the bat. I don't hate Nickelback, or at least not as much as the bandwagoners would want you to. This is mostly because I know that this band can write some genuinely good stuff when they actually, try, as I learned when I went back through their discography a few years ago. This mostly comes from their first 3 albums. The first 2, Curb and The State, were released independently in Canada in the late 90s, and are actually really good post-grunge records. Not track-for-track masterpieces by any means, but they really showed a lot of potential with their hard-hitting mix of hard rock, grunge, and alternative metal, with just enough pop appeal to make themselves really stand out in a good way. And their third album and breakthrough of the mainstream, Silver Side Up from 2001, is my personal favorite, and built on that whole sound pretty nicely, incorporating more dynamics and even heavier subject matter on songs like Never Again and Too Bad. Not to mention that Good Times Gone is pretty much my go-to song when trying to convince people that Nickelback can actually write some great songs when they want to. But unfortunately, after that is where I really have to start siding with the majority, with every album after that pumping out one generic, pandering, corporate, sleazeball, radio rock turd single after another, with only little spurts of good songwriting and admitted guilty pleasures to make them even a little worthwhile. Meanwhile, back in 2011, a long time before this channel came into existence, I made a video on my personal channel called A Message to Nickelback Haters, made during the time just after I discovered those earlier albums and promptly started liking those later ones less and less, and looking back, it was a terrible idea for a video, not really having much of a point besides just saying that you shouldn't hate Nickelback because they were good at some point. And later that year I posted a review of their previous album, Here and Now, which was pretty much the first negative review of an album I'd ever done. And even though I did end up deleting both videos, both because of the obvious and some really embarrassing presentation, when news came out that their next album, No Fixed Address, would be coming out, I had fair reason to check it out. And it's a Martin Nickelback record. Now before anything else, I do want to point out the good things I have to say about this album, since it probably has the most highlights out of any Nickelback album from the last decade, even if that's not exactly saying much. First off, the opener, Million Miles an Hour, is a hard rocker that falls firmly into that shallowly enjoyable category, alongside songs like Burn to the Ground, This Afternoon, This Means War, stuff like that. Sure, the lyrics are nonsensical and frankly just plain stupid, but the crunchy, fun riffs definitely help make up for that. And their She Keeps Me Up. Now, Nickelback doing a disco song on paper sounds like a recipe for disaster, and for good reason, but to me this song actually works pretty well. And sure, it's obviously hopping on that revival pop trend, and Chad's vocals don't even come close to fitting, but I honestly don't really care. It's probably the catchiest song on the album, and the lyrics, while bordering on cock rock, manage to not be insufferable about it like Nickelback usually does when they go into that territory. Me Runnin Round is in a slightly similar vein, having an almost early Maroon 5-ish sound, especially in the guitar work, and a horn section that was a really great touch. And while in my opinion Flo Rida is one of those artists that deserves way more specific hate than he gets, he's actually kind of tolerable here, even if his verse doesn't exactly add much to the song. And the closer, Sister Sin, has a cool western vibe that, while not exactly amazingly authentic, does do a pretty good job at separating itself from the rest of the album. My absolute favorite song here has to be The Hammers Coming Down, easily one of the best songs Nickelback has ever released. I just love the lavish instrumentation on this thing, with the huge pounding tom-heavy drums, the string section and piano that adds a nice sense of drama to the whole thing, the downright anthemic chorus with a 3-3-2 rhythm that I'm always a fan of, and the lyrics that, while nothing entirely masterful, does a far better job at being uplifting than anything else Nickelback has put out with this theme. Also, one thing I do have to commend this album for, compared to their last couple, is the lack of wannabe strip club anthems and seriously questionable sex songs. But with all positivity out of the way, let's get to the fun part. Nickelback as we know and begrudgingly tolerate them. First off, the token slow songs. What Are You Waiting For is just incredibly synthetic and commercial, complete with the 4 chords of pop running throughout the whole thing, and laughable overuse of pitch down effects. and being quite possibly the most generic, cliche, pandering, phoned-in, nondescript motivational song I've ever heard, in this department making Katy Perry look like 21 Pilots. Seriously, every single line here is something straight off a cat poster at a doctor's office, in a way that clearly insults the audience's intelligence. Besides, since this is obviously meant to be a hit, could someone please tell Nickelback that it's not 2005 anymore and this just isn't the way to do it? And I might as well group Satellite and Miss You together, since they're pretty much identical as far as anonymous, chick flick ready power ballads go. They might even beat What Are You Waiting For in the commercial sap department. Miss You especially having these really corny self-backing vocals and some truly embarrassing auto-tune toward the end. Going out of ballad territory on the lead single Edge of Revolution, we go from Nickelback playing it way too safe to going way in over their heads and talking about politics. And frankly, I don't know whether it's more cute or just kinda sad. It's like some weird alternate reality, where Rage Against the Machine never broke up, and instead just got worse and worse as they kept pathetically trying to keep up with the political issues of the day to stay relevant, especially with the organization name-dropping that just comes off as nothing short of desperate. But easily, the most bafflingly bad song here is Get 'Em Up, a song about, very plainly, robbing a bank. No character backstory that might bring up sociopolitical issues, no signs in sight of it all being a metaphor for something, and not even any clever wordplay or likable personality, just straight up felony glorification that is frankly just kind of stupid as far as song concepts go. Overall, while there are little good moments scattered across here, and I would technically call it their best since The Long Road, given what's come between that and this, that's not exactly saying a lot, so it gets a 5.5 from me. If you're a fan or just morbidly curious, I guess you can give it a shot, but I suggest you pick up the first 3 albums first, aka their pre-sellout days. So if you guys have heard this album, what do you think of it? Do you agree with what I had to say? Disagree? Have any feedback about the channel in general? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to be civil. Share this around with anyone who might be interested, like the Facebook page in the description for updates, commentaries, music news, and reviews of older albums, and hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of Spin It Reviews.
How the hell they wind up like this? And why weren't they able to maintain the quality? And I'll hurry hell someday.